I think it could be just as simple as I would like the notes to go higher between second, like 12 seconds and 15 seconds, opposed to going down, for example, is probably a good, clear. I'm guessing. Would you say that would be helpful, and it could be a clear way of helping to really pinpoint and nail down what that what you're looking for if it gets down to that granular?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was helpful for when we were putting together your theme, wasn't it? Like you basically said, oh, I do really like the melody and everything, but those last few notes, right? I remember it being the last like 3 notes. It was just maybe 1 or 2 semitones. It was still in key and everything, but you just wanted a different resolve, which is completely fine. But I think, and I remember you sort of recording, you humming the note, and it was great. And I was like, Andrew, I don't mean to be rude, but it is slightly out of key. What if I, what if I show you my DAW, which is a digital audio workstation, and show you the actual thing? And we did a screen share, and I remember showing you the possible note options. And we basically slid them up and down and said, all right, this is what it's going to resolve to if we get to that point. What do you think? Oh, no, I think it's the one above. And I think we ended up going up to 2 semitones. And then that was it. Like, that was the only tweak that you needed, which there's going to be a lot of tweaks. There's always going to be, especially if it's a bigger game. And there's nothing wrong with that. Composers need to get on board with getting the feedback, because it's only going to help you grow as a professional as well. And it's only going to help the developer get the result that they want, which is going to benefit everybody. The audience, yourself, obviously the game developer. I think the biggest tip there would to just be get in the trenches with the composer and the game developer, and do screen shares, show them what you have, work in progresses, or whips, like we call them in the composer. Well, actually, I think that goes for anybody. Whips are just important. It doesn't mean that you don't want to show the finished product to them until it's done and perfect and mixed and balanced and everything and beautiful. You need to know and fine tune ahead of time. Like, don't wait till the last minute to give them that product. Make sure that you can take like an agile software approach and just show it as it is and get feedback as early and as often as possible. I think that's going to benefit everyone in the long term.
Yeah. And me personally, from that experience, I really enjoyed and liked that a lot. And anyone else who's doing that too, I'm sure that they see how it can not just benefit themselves from a composer's perspective of creating a quality product, but also, just providing that value to any developer. But me personally, it was a really good process to go through, and it, like, not only that, it also made me feel like I was actually contributing to however I could in this way, even though obviously you were doing a lot of the work in itself, but still. And again, that's where we were talking about before, and the importance of really understanding and seeing how you like gel with these people that you're working with, because this is a clear example of how you can really be working very directly with these people to make sure that you are getting ultimately what you want and something that your audience wants. So I want to shift the conversation a little bit more in terms of, really understanding what people want. So when we're creating this music, it's all about the theme. I mean, not the theme, but partially the theme, but ultimately the feeling. So, and when we're talking about feeling, again, it's really relating to what's going on in your game, how immersive it is, but ultimately it's for the players. So, a question I have for you is, when devs are thinking of ideas for music, how important do you think it is to keep their audience in mind as well?
Yeah, incredibly important. I think that goes without saying, but I think the biggest thing they can do is just try to get information on what sort of music the audience likes, finding similarities or patterns that they can use to benefit their game. So I would say, even just kind of creeping on some of your followers and trying to find, in the people they follow, do they have some artists that they follow? Like, I think everybody is guilty, even if they're not hugely into music, following like, up to 5 of their favorite artists just to like keep the day-to-day on what they're into. Like, I follow Game Chops. I love the stuff they release constantly. And a lot of my audience is also Game Chops fans, and that works for me. The same goes for a game developer. If you know that a lot of your fans love heavy metal because it's like a demonic seance game, then do that. You know, maybe if you can't contract Mick Gordon, that's fine. I'm sure there's plenty of other people that love to make kind of harder music. If you have a really nice kind of JRPG theme where it's just really tonal and beautiful, and you just want to go for something that's simple but has a really, you know, you're playing it, you're just happy, but you're also sort of, you have this melancholy feeling of nostalgia that you just can't shake, you know, that's fine. Find those artists, find what similarities they all have across the board. They could be different, but try to find the elements in it, that contrast that you want to bring to your video game that you think would suit your audience because they enjoy that.
Yeah, and I want to this when I put this question together, this started becoming really top of mind for me as another potential example, kind of like maybe a bit of an extreme in a way, but so for Netflix has those new slasher films. What is it? Fear Street, right? And
yeah, they're really good, actually.
Yeah, they are. I you know, I enjoyed them. I'm not into slashes all that much. I didn't find them too frightening for me personally, but I thoroughly enjoyed them. But and here's I think part of the reason why. What they have done was that like each of these, there's 3 films. It's like a trilogy essentially, and each one it takes place in a different time period. But what they did was, so here's my example. It's a horror movie basically. So for a horror movie, you're thinking, okay, there's going to be certain types of music that are resemble horror, like a horror theme. But what they did was they interspliced a lot of different music from that era to really capture that time period. But it also totally, without a doubt, was intentionally because it pretty much resonated with their intended audience, their intended viewership. So I thought it was done very well on numerous ends. One, thematically, but also like they were just checking off all the boxes. And they did that again, and this took place in a different time period with the next installment of the film. I'm interested to see what the third one is, and I think that just came out because that takes place in 1666. Those are the subheadings is basically the year and when these events happen. But it was just really interesting to see that, and that's what was like top of mind. Like, and so I'm thinking, okay, you might have a game that is a horror game, but think about your audience in terms of not necessarily saying you have to have like top hits from the 90s in your video game, but like what other things are there that can help bring things together thematically, creating that feeling, but also that could resonate with the audience at the same time, and just finding all those ways to like kind of like hit those chords with your audience, and it could make a lot of awesome things happen. So
yeah, absolutely.
All right. So another thing I'm curious about is, you know, creating an immersive and engaging experience for players is always top of mind for devs. But what are some musical elements or techniques that can be used to help enhance the music and the overall player experience?
Yeah, that's another really good question. I think you obviously spent a fair bit of time on these and thinking what's going to help your audience. Well, I mean, as you should. I would say there's a few things that come to mind, but number one that I think is kind of underrated is ambience. Okay. So ambience is sort of the little underlying tones that you put into, say, a film or a game that really paints the picture of where you are. So I know that a lot of location audio engineers and stuff for film, they actually record the ambience, like just basically before or after the set, make everyone leave and just record the room that they were actually in.
Yeah, room.
So they can put that in to feel, yeah, exactly, to fill the silence. You should do something similar in video games. So if you know that they're going to be in like an abandoned hospital, you know, in the future, try to go to a hospital and just record like the location or get a sample on Freesound or whatever you need to do to get that ambience and put it in there. You can also get creative with ambience. It's sort of one of those things where just like, it's just a room tone. No one's going to notice, but they really do because it is one of the most immersive things you can do. And it's quite simple. So you can also add things like, lo-fi hip hop is huge now. People put in vinyl crackle and different things like that. Tape hiss, that stuff that really paints that nostalgic feeling everyone's chasing. That's an example of that. Another thing is stereo width. So in stereo imaging, you have basically front, back, and the sides. So literally like a 3D space. You want it to be as wide as possible without it getting phasey. There is a plug-in instrument you can get that you basically chuck on a channel and like send everything out to the sides, right, to make it really wide and feel big. So if you're listening on like a home theater system or in headphones, it basically feels like it's all around you, like it's giving you a big hug in your ears.
Ah, okay.
There's ways to get stereo width without doing that and getting that phasey kind of artificial sound. You can get it by just panning certain things left and right a certain percentage, so that way they fit in the field. So yeah, I would say that's really big to have your composer do. So panning stereo width, rumble for big events. So that's basically taking a low frequency. I think it's around 50 or 60 from memory. That's where the rumble happens. If you have a really high amount of that frequency specifically, it's going to have like that. You can almost feel it all around you. It's sub bass, but it's got a specific rumble quality to it that could be very helpful for like explosions. Now, I'm not talking about sound designers. I'm talking in composing. If you put a little bit of extra rumble in your tracks, it's just going to paint that sensation for your players. Don't go too silly though, because you could easily overdo it. But that's kind of up to the composer to have a good mix in the end, which that brings me to my next point, actually. Having a good mix. So we have the song and the sounds that are composed and arranged, and, you know, the instrumentation's done, it's all played, the melody's there, everything's there. You need to have a good mix for it to actually sit in the game and it not play with other, like if you have sound effects and you have a lot of like laser guns, those are going to be sort of in the maybe 1 kilohertz up to 10 kilohertz, like more mid to high frequencies. Make sure that in your music you don't have too many frequencies in that area, because that's just gonna fight with them. You need to let those pew pews come through. That's an example. Just making sure that you don't have things popping out or are too harsh on the ears for your listener, because if they like the music, they're going to turn it up quite high, and if it's high and it's just like in their ears and it's harsh and stuff, they're going to notice. They might not know what to listen for, like what frequencies with an untrained ear, but they are going to notice.
Yeah.
Another couple of things are attenuation, which is basically 3D spatial sound. So we talked about stereo width earlier, but attenuation is basically there's a fire in front of me. If I go closer to it, it gets louder. If I go to the left of the fire, my right ear is going to, that's the only place that the sound's coming from. If I go to the right-hand side, my left ear is what I hear the fire. So it kind of puts you in that space. That's important. You can do that in any game engine. And middleware, but attenuation is incredibly important, and it's one of those underrated things that I don't even think most people think about. It's just, you know, it's part of our life. If you're trying to create an immersive experience, that's what you want to do, is mimic real life as best you can. Alongside that, 2 more quick ones. I would say reverb, like actually having the correct reverb type. So, you know, if you're going down a hall, kind of throwing that into the chain and making sure that, you know, you have this big lush reverb as you're walking down and you can hear the footsteps getting kind of echoey and that kind of thing.
Wow, these were awesome, because like again, it's when we think of music and stuff, it's generally that, right? But like the extra level of how things could like just be really provide that immersive experience, like the was it attenuation, or I'm saying it wrong, I think.
Attenuation.
Thank you.
Like attention, basically, but right. Attenuation, like putting attention to that object. Yeah.
But like that's like perfect. Like another great one. Like for example, I had a client that I think they were also the composer for the music too, and they were putting and working on some of the elements to it. And one thing I picked it up right away, which was it was reversed. But the effect was really cool, because basically they were like underwater and there was a missile going across the screen, and you could hear it going from the left to the right. And it was just like that extra detail to it was like, wow, that I would have like, that's just awesome. Like, and like as a player, you know, you like you said, they notice these things and everything. And like it's just that much cooler. A great example in terms of film, if you want to really get into audio engineering or the brilliance of it, and you have a good system for it, is Saving Private Ryan. I'm sure there's a lot of other films